Psychologist and Director at Stotan Group, Harry Moffitt sees overworked CEOs and leaders trying to keep businesses and organisations upbeat and productive, in the process some creating cascading stress with detrimental consequences for employees and themselves. And he's here now to talk to us about how CEOs can mitigate this. I'm the boss of this company. Have these guys asked you to come in to talk to me?
Not yet, but I'm open to it, Aaron. If I'll let you
Talk
know.
to us. I mean, this is a time which is a really emotionally challenging time for a lot of people within business. We've just had Qantas announcing they're cutting 6,000 staff, 15,000 stood down. No CEO wants to do this, no manager wants to do this, particularly when we talk about small and medium-sized business. It's really tough, isn't it, to run a business at the moment?
Yeah, definitely, and it doesn't look like it's going to abate anytime soon. So it's really important. There's a few important things for CEOs to think about, and I suppose focusing in on the leaders and the CEOs. We need to make sure that we're getting the message through to them to stop trying to be heroes and be everything to everybody, and try and look after yourself.
Now, the story I love about you, you're a former SAS team commander. I would imagine there's probably a lot more stress in that role than for most CEOs. What would you say you learn from real world job like that CEOs could take on board?
Yeah, well, really, the number one thing that resonates from my career, which is over about 20 years, is to power down. And what does that mean? It means that whether it's on a daily routine of taking time out, and the modern kind of milieu is about mindfulness and meditation, but even just taking power naps, going for a walk, some deep thinking. And they're also kind of on the...
And exercise is fantastic, right? It's kind of the stress reliever, allows you to laterally look at things. You think of going for a run and what it does to your brain in terms of being able to compartmentalise the issues you have, puts everything in front of you.
Yeah, actually I like that. So exercise is great, and there's no doubt about that, and it gives you downtime to an extent. But what we want to do is actually lower arousal completely. So when CEOs and leaders are really just basting in all of the stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline and epinephrine, etc. And what we need to do is kind of break that circuit. We need those hormones and those chemicals to drive us forward and to motivate us, but we need to dampen them at times too, because long-term detriments of those chemicals leads to burnout.
I'm new in the role of a leader of a business, and you look at the pressures that you get from every angle, right? The one thing people don't often do is come to you with $1 million check and say, here, I'll fix all your issues. The one thing I ask myself is about whether it gets easier, whether as time goes by, you learn to be more of a cruise ship going through the waves as opposed to being a little tinny, kind of seeing every little wave as a potential Poseidon adventure. So does it get better, or do you think what you're talking about is that it actually can get worse over time, where your brain starts to maybe not even willingly give in?
Yeah, so the ship analogy is fantastic, and I think another important thing I've learned over my journey is to delegate hard. So we have a 2ICs kind of mindset. CEOs, plan your list of things to do. There's never 3 or 5. There's 20 or 30. Plan that list of things to do and delegate hard. People surprise you, and trust them to carry out those tasks.
Is your message the same whether it's big business or small business though? Because definition of success for me for business is to be able to take a week off and the business runs itself. Obviously a lot of small businesses, they just can't do that. They're working in the business every day, rarely any time to work on the business because they can't afford to have staff to delegate to. However, larger organisations, you can also end up with a bit of a megalomaniac as a CEO who needs to be across everything, and everything has to pass through them, and therefore their mental capacity would start to go. So is it different between the two different types of leaders? Yeah,
definitely. I see that between the bigger companies and the smaller startups, if you like. I guess the good news for startups, and we're just coming out of our startup phase, I guess, at Stotan Group. The good news is that you can embed these behaviours, this education and this self-awareness early on. Often in big business, by the time there's a problem and they get us in to help them, they haven't learnt those behaviours, and they're not embedded in the organisation. So one of the things I see with startups is we go straight to their calendar, and they're worried about it being too full. And I would argue that in a lot of cases, a calendar's not full enough. And what I mean by that is booking your family in, booking yourself in, booking in the time. And
it's funny, isn't it? We hear from successful CEOs, they talk about that. They say that they put in their personal time as if it's as important as a board meeting.
Well, it's a learned behaviour. It's a beautiful way to nudge an already learned behaviour. You're dictated by your calendar. So why not take that the next step further and actually really manage yourself properly? And that's a deliberate, mindful practice to manage your time and routine.
And talk to us about how this group started for you, and talk about the sort of people you work with.
Okay, so Stotan Group's a human performance consulting group, and we're interested in individual, team and organisational development. I was the high performance manager in the SAS just before I hung up my helmet, if you like. Amazing. Or was kicked out for being too old. And we rewrote a program, and it exposed me to a whole world of high performance teams and mission critical teams globally. And I thought, well, there's something in this that we may be able to take to the corporate world. We work with businesses up to 200-300 in IT and finance. We work with small financial teams. We also work across sports and defence and government as well.
And coming from where you've come from, obviously very high pressure, a lot going on. We talk about it all the time. And then going into a role that you're doing now, has that actually helped you personally too, to be able to look back? Do you think that if you were able to have had the same lessons that you have now, back when you were going through it, that things would have been a bit easier for you?
Oh, undoubtedly. I think we all go, I wish I knew that 10 years ago. And it's one of the things we say to organisations, start to think a bit more sophisticatedly or be more sophisticated in your thinking about human performance and people. But look, the journey's been a long one, it's been exciting, but we're a sum of all of those things, and we kind of reconstruct the past on occasion to suit the now. Yeah. I think it's enjoy the journey you're on is what I would say.
I would say you are 100% right. Harry, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
and for all those CEOs out there, take a break. Thank you.
Good on you.